Why do we even bother to pray? And why do we pray in a consecrated place, a place of beauty? The disciples say to Jesus, "Oh, look, teacher, what large stones and what huge buildings." Many years ago, I found myself standing next to what some people call the Western Wall, other people call the Wailing Wall. And that's a whole story by itself. But it is what remains of the temple that Herod had taken 40 long years to rebuild. It is somewhere in that vicinity that this gospel that you heard today was spoken between Jesus and his disciples. The smallest stone in this remaining wall weighed 2 to 3 tons. Many of the other stones were known to have weighed 50 tons. Thus, the largest existing stone of the Wailing Wall that now is there is actually 40 feet long and 10 feet high. That's one stone. It weighs, as you can imagine, hundreds of tons. These stones were so immense that neither mortar nor any kind of building material was used between the stones. Their stability was attained by the great weight of the stones themselves. You know, how they ever even moved these stones in place is a whole miracle of engineering. Another story. The walls of the temple itself, when it was completed, towered over Jerusalem over 400 feet at one point. Inside the four walls were 45 acres of bedrock, mountain shaved flat. During Jesus' day, 250,000 people could fit comfortably within the structure. No sports stadium in America even comes close. It's hard to describe what impact the completed temple must have had in its own day. The top of the dome was covered in leaves of imprinted gold so that as it sat on the tallest precipice for miles around, as pilgrims were coming to the city, they just saw this flash of gold. It was jeweled. It was bedazzling. What kind of faith does it take to accomplish something like the building of that temple? You remember that it was destroyed by the Babylonians 400 years before. That means for 400 years, for many generations, those Jews, those faithful and trusting Jews, prayed. They prayed for the Messiah. They mustered the time and the energy and the vision and the resources to build this ancient wonder of the world. And to this day, the Jews that continue to worship there regard this as the holiest place on earth. So many years ago, I remember entering into this large area that's cordoned off for prayers, now at the Wailing Wall, the remaining stones. And I was standing there waiting, like in this mass of people, You get pushed forward slowly as the prayers are happening. And I was looking up, and even one stone was about twice as tall as I was. That particular morning, there was a long line of pilgrims, and they were mixed in with the Hasidic Jews who pray there every single day. I don't know if you know, the men wear long black coats, and they have a distinctly Eastern European black hat, and they have long curls, the men do, that are curled. I never understood, but those curls are such that when the rapture happens, they believe that God will take them up, and they won't miss that occasion. Never knew that. In the middle of the courtyard, there's kind of a black linen separation, lest us dumb pilgrims don't understand that the men are on one side and the women are on the other side. The women wear a long plain dress, and their arms are always covered, as is their heads, out of modesty. Some of the women that day were young with their children. Others were ancient. I do remember at one point there was one woman who was crying pitifully as she was praying. Others seemed like it was a regular Sabbath event for them. You know, we all pray in different ways with our bodies. Here, we pray sometimes by standing, sometimes by sitting. Sometimes people stand, others sit. Sometimes people kneel. All valid prayer forms. Sometimes at the Our Father, people hold out their hands, cup their hands as a gesture of love and affection for our Father. The Hasidic Jews pray a very specific way with their bodies. They pray by davening. It's a very comforting prayer practice. It's a form of rocking back and forth. It's almost as if God is rocking them. And they move in that way as they're holding their prayer book, and they're praying out loud. It's sort of like a murmur, a deep, pervasive, rich, intoned murmur that lifts from that crowd. I remember being dazzled by the strength of that deep, rich, low hum. So I was listening and watching that morning and still nodding. Didn't know what I was going to do or wanted to do. I was just taking it in when I noticed that there was also men and women who were taking small pieces of paper, and they had written on there the prayer of their hearts. And they folded those into tiny pieces. And as they reached the wall, they put their prayer in any crack that they could find. Now you can imagine, those prayers have happened for hundreds and hundreds of years. Prayers of the deepest place. And as they would squeeze them in, sometimes other prayers would fall down, but they would be quickly lifted and burned on that day, lest any prayer be lost or not heard. Millions of people have pressed their heartfelt prayers into that wall. I don't remember what prayer I finally came up with. All I remember to this day of all the religious sites that I have visited in the world, that place, it exuded, like, all I can say is like a magnetic force. The energy of prayer happening changes things. The heart of prayer goes somewhere. So this Sunday before Thanksgiving, as usual, there are wars There are rumors of wars. There are earthquakes. There are fires. And yet, we're here to pray prayers of thanks to a God that loves us, to a God that cares what we are going through. It's a time when many people are afraid of our divisions, what's happening to us as a people. We all want to live and live well so that our grandchildren live well. Other times I've shared with you some stories from Jack Shea, a friend of ours, and I've invited Adam to conclude this by telling a story, a true story about Nikos Kazantzakis, one of the most famous writers of modern Greece, and he reminds us why it is important to pray.
So Nikos Kazantzakis is in Jerusalem at the Wailing Wall with a young friend whom he describes as an adventurous atheist full of efficaciousness and logic. And they're watching the men praying, and Kazantzakis is thinking that in the minds of the people who are praying, there's just so much going on. For them, Jerusalem has been rebuilt. The temple has been restored. And Kazantzakis is thinking this, and then the people finish their prayers and move away. And Kazantzakis' young friend turns to him and says, these people think that their shouts in the air are going to bring the New Jerusalem? Only mass manufacturing and just distribution of wealth is going to make a perfect humanity and build a New Jerusalem. And Kazantzakis is peeved. And he says, these people you ridicule are the pioneers who sow seeds in the air. And then you managers, you logicians, you sociologists come along 1,000 or 2,000 years later, and you reap the benefits. The mystical preparation of reality has always been this way. The heart suffocates, and it cries out, wanting to escape. And it finds a voice and storms the air, and then it finds other hearts. And it sets in motion brains and hands, and musters visible and invisible powers.